Incredible revelation, Waitress calls Billionaire by her father's name. Hidden truths exposed. The scent of fresh coffee hung heavy in the air, mingling with the morning chatter that spilled through the doors of the diner. Emily stood behind the counter, her worn sneakers shifting restlessly on the tiled floor as she filled mugs with steaming brew. Each clatter of dishes felt rhythmic, almost comforting, grounding her amid the whirlwind of her life. But her smile faltered slightly every time she glanced over at the corner booth, where Jack the enigmatic billionaire sat absorbed in his newspaper, an image of both power and vulnerability. This morning, the diner was packed. Regulars bickered playfully about the weather, while tourists drifted in and out with snapshots of the town. Staring into Jack's deep-set eyes, filled with stories yet untold, triggered a flicker of unease deep in her gut. It merged with the guilt of her own dreams, distant echoes of classrooms filled with ambition soon smothered under the weight of caring for her father. "John?" she blurted out, forgetting to rein in her thoughts. Jack's gaze snapped toward her, confusion flickering across his face, as hushed silence enveloped their world. She called him by her father's name. A sharp intake of breath tensioned the air, their connection morphing into something intangible. Emily felt the weight of her family's history settle like a shadow between them. Moments stretched, her heartbeat sinking with the sudden gravity filling the space. Jack cocked his head slightly, as if recalling something lost. Their realities, once separate, collided in this barely their moment, their eyes locked. "Everyone has a story," Jack said softly, breaking the silence, nudging the conversation. It stung, his words carving a chasm in her loyalties, forcing her to confront the first of multiple moral dilemmas. Could she ignore the weight of obligations anchoring her to her father? She had to take care of him whose pride had crumbled alongside their business. Yet, this newfound connection with Jack, how warm his coffee was when he shared it across the table, how he leaned in slightly when she spoke, danced like a flickering flame in the back of her mind. Could this billionaire be an answer? A way out? The ache of her responsibilities twisted in her stomach. Could any bond survive if built on deception? The chaos of plates being dropped and laughter faded into a distant hum, as she felt a dissonance within her grow, clouds of uncertainty spilling over. Just days later, Jack opened up, sharing pieces of his life so carefully curated, each revelation nudging her closer and causing her to hesitate. Were these pseudo-familiar encounters an illusion? For the first time in what felt like an eternity, her dreams seemed reachable, yet how close to a monsoon of troubles would she be dragging them? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As rain drizzled down the windows that evening, an instinct pulled Emily to investigate Jack's past. Tucked inside the worn pages of a book bearing Jack's name were documents, blueprints of deceit. Each page revealed cuts and decisions entwined with her father's demise, exposing choices that had cost her family dearly. The room felt suddenly small, stifling. Her heartbeat quickened, dread spilling into the crevices of her mind. Was Jack just another wealthy figure, uncaring of the ripples he'd caused? Or could understanding them reshape everything she believed about him? The delicate nature of the connection they were weaving pressed against her heart, the truth looming a burden she might have to share. Standing on the precipice, grappling with a choice that felt like tearing loyalties apart, Emily's gaze remained fixed on Jack. There was something in his eyes whispering of hidden depths, a confession waiting to be unearthed, leaving her stranded in a void, desperate to discern if this bond could become her salvation or lead her to ruin. Emily paced her small apartment, the soft light of the lamp casting elongated shadows that danced across the walls, reminding her of the uncertainty that loomed ahead. Every heartbeat thumped louder, punctuated by the fading echo of Jack's voice from their last conversation. She had seen the flicker of surprise in his eyes, an unspoken acknowledgement of her father's name. Yet, she felt entangled in a web woven not only by circumstances but by choices that lay at her feet like a precarious tightrope. Perhaps it was time to confront her fears. She opened her laptop, the screen illuminating her face, casting a cool glow that felt harsh against the warmth of the wooden table. Should she delve deeper into Jack's life? Unearth the past that mapped the trajectory of her father's downfall? With hesitant fingers, she typed his name into the search bar, every click exacerbating the knot in her stomach. What would she find? Answers or further anguish? As the browser whirred to life, she realized she was holding her breath. A series of articles and blogs surfaced, painting a picture of Jack not as merely a billionaire, but as a visionary who had turned a family business into an empire. Yet beneath that polished facade, there were murmurings of controversy. Business decisions that had sacrificed individuals at the altar of profitability were documented with gritty clarity. Emily's pulse quickened, a mix of admiration for Jack's prowess and resentment for the consequences lingered in the air like a thunderhead primed to release its rain. How could I even think of him? She murmured to herself, tracing the contours of her thoughts while the world outside continued its banal hum. Yet, a counter-argument wrestled in her mind. Could this understanding forge a bridge between them, an opportunity to challenge the narratives that had dictated her life? To climb out from under her father's shadow and perhaps rewrite her own story? That evening, she made a choice. She structured her findings into a concise presentation, outlining every critical piece of information, analyzing the aftermath of Jack's decisions. If she was to confront him, it could not be from a place of raw emotion and uncertainty. She needed clarity, needed to articulate not only her questions but the impulses driving her to seek him out. She was ready for honesty, and as she meticulously prepared, a flicker of determination ignited in her chest. Days passed, and Emily found herself standing in the diner once more, the air thick with anticipation. Jack, seated at his usual booth, had become her odd tether to possibility. Could confronting him reveal a path she hadn't yet imagined, one that could merge their worlds? As she approached, nerves thrummed through her veins, making each step feel both monumental and trivial. "Jack," she called, her voice steadier than she felt. He looked up, his expression a mix of curiosity and something else, something vulnerable. She slid into the seat across from him, heart racing. "I've been thinking," she started, pausing to gather her words. She could sense his attention sharpen, the world around them fading as the gravity of their conversation loomed. "About your past, and mine." Tension crackled in the small space between them, a silent challenge, a promise that something was about to unravel. Would they find a common ground or deepen the chasm that threatened to swallow them both whole? Jack leaned forward slightly, his blue eyes searching hers with intensity. "What do you want to know, Emily?" he asked, and she felt the air thicken with the weight of his question. This was the moment where her decisions would either fracture or strengthen her. The lines of their connection blurred further, each word spelling potential disaster or deliverance. There, at the intersection of aspiration and truth, Emily steeled herself for the repercussions of discovery, poised on the brink of revelation. The path ahead was unclear. Would she emerge with answers or spiral deeper into conflict? The weight of unfinished truths beckoned her, daring her to dive deeper into the maze that Jack embodied. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she pondered Jack's question, the air heavy with unspoken truths. This was not merely a conversation, this was a reckoning, a crossroad where her past collided with the present. She recalled the articles she'd read, Jack's successes shadowed by failures that resonated with her own family's legacy. Could he offer insight, or was she walking into a minefield? "Your decisions," she began, her voice steady despite the storm brewing within. "They affected people. My father was one of them." Each word was a deliberate step on the tightrope she had crafted in the days preceding this moment. She watched Jack's expression shift, a flicker of understanding mixed with something like guilt crossing his features. "I know my choices come with consequences," Jack replied, his voice firm yet subdued. I've had to live with that every single day. But you must understand, I never intended to hurt anyone." The quiet sincerity in his voice grabbed Emily's attention, tugging at the intricate web of emotions she had spun around him. It was absurd, really, sitting here, dissecting a painful topic with the man who had played a major role in the narrative of her life. "You sacrificed your values for profit," she challenged, her tone sharp but layered with a hint of vulnerability. "How can you reconcile that?" Jack leaned back, folding his arms as he pondered her words. He looked at her, deeply, as if searching for pieces of himself in her determination. "It's not as black and white as you think. At times, I had to make decisions that were best for the business, not just for the people involved. It was never easy, but I thought it necessary for survival." "And look where that got you," Emily pressed. "A name that carries power and wealth, but at what cost? I didn't choose this blame that follows me because of your past choices." She felt the tightening in her chest ease slightly. She was both confronting him and confronting herself. These realizations didn't absolve Jack, but they clarified her own motivations. Perhaps she wasn't just here to accuse him, but to understand what drove a person to turn their back on human connection for the sake of ambition. "Do you really think I don't think about those decisions every day?" Jack's voice broke through her thoughts, tinged with an emotion she hadn't expected: resignation. He met her gaze, unflinching. "Sometimes I wonder if I've succumbed to a certain kind of blindness. I can't change my past, but I can change the future." Changing the future. The phrase struck a chord deep within Emily, challenging her own impulses. To carve out her narrative, to step into a wider world, she needed to push past the pain, a revolution of her essence, inspired by this very confrontation. "If you can change your future, then maybe so can I," she declared, her voice steadier than before. "I've spent too long tethered to shadows. I won't allow your past decisions to dictate my life any longer." There it was, empowerment blossoming from discontent. The revelation ignited a new resolve within her, urging her to take active steps instead of remaining a passive victim of circumstances. As each second ticked on, Emily felt the power shift slightly in her favor. Jack studied her with renewed interest. "What exactly do you intend to do?" She envisioned a pathway stemming from this moment: her investigations, her presentations, her drive not only to confront her own fears but to carve out a space of her own significance amidst the noise left by their father's histories. "I'm going to expose the truth. Not just about us, but about what really happens when ambition overshadows humanity." Tension surged as his brows furrowed. "You need to be careful. The world I come from is ruthless." "Maybe I want that challenge," she shot back, her heart racing at the prospect. "It beats hiding." Jack's expression softened, and several seconds hung between them, vibrating with unacknowledged potential. Suddenly, the diner felt like a shrine to possibilities, the walls reverberating with their burgeoning alliance, even if tinged with distrust. "Then let us navigate it together," he finally said, extending his hand across the table. Emily hesitated, her instinct screaming caution, but desire for growth overpowered the feeling. She met his gaze, weighing the risks, unraveling the threads of their complicated narratives. She knew this was more than a pact, it was a compass pointing her toward uncharted territory. As they shook hands, a pulse of electricity zipped through her, igniting a determination to not only rewrite their stories but to redefine her existence. Their future loomed ahead, uncertain, but filled with a newfound energy. What would their joint efforts unravel, and could Emily carve out her own identity without repeating the mistakes of the past? The journey was just beginning, and the stakes were climbing. The sun pierced through the diner windows, casting long shadows across the table where Emily and Jack sat, hands still clasped together. It felt surreal, this tentative partnership, as if time had paused to reflect on the enormity of the moment. Emily's thoughts blitzed through the implications of their agreement. She was standing at the precipice of change, ready to dive headfirst into the murky waters of her past. As they released their grip, Emily felt an urgency swell within her. It was not just about confronting the demons of the past or exposing the shadows left by their fathers. It was about embracing her own ambition, finding a voice that had been shushed for far too long. First, she stated, her tone assertive, I need to uncover everything, the facts, the connections, the power plays hidden beneath the surface. Jack nodded, leaning closer, interest igniting in his eyes. I can help you with that. I have access to records, contacts who might spill hidden truths. But it won't be easy. People like us, those in power, don't take kindly to threats against their empires. His words sank in, layering her resolve with an awareness of the dangers ahead. The thought of going against a well-entrenched system was daunting. Yet something deeper within her stirred a whisper that called her to action, a reminder that nothing worthwhile came easy. Determination fused her initial trepidation into fervor. In the subsequent days, Emily immersed herself in research, fueled by caffeine and late nights. She dug through archives of business dealings, pieced together patterns in the controversial decisions Jack had made, and scoured news reports. With each revelation, a potent mixture of disgust and motivation coursed through her veins. The truth of her father's struggles mirrored the lavish missteps of Jack's past. She had a story to tell, and it required meticulous craftsmanship. Jack maintained close contact, an unexpected mentor figure guiding her through the labyrinth. Together they planned their next steps, stringing ideas and theories together. Inside her, doubts would bubble up. Am I overestimating my abilities? But each time she felt fragile, Jack reassured her. You're smarter than you realize, Emily. You've got a fire within you. This mentorship blossomed into a connection deeper than she anticipated. He was not just a reflection of her father's failures but also a pivotal element in her transformation. Each session filled her with the confidence she had lacked, a reversal of roles where, instead of needing his validation, she could inspire him. One afternoon, as they sat across from each other in his office, surrounded by sprawling views of the city, a thought struck her. What if what you've built isn't just wealth, but also a chance for redemption? She didn't know where it came from, but the words spilled out, embracing both of them in a palpable silence. Jack's eyes narrowed, contemplating her words. Redemption is a tough road. I want to do better, but the fear of failure lurks always. Fear is a liar, Emily asserted, feeling the intensity of her voice rise. If we're to expose the truth, we need to step through that fear, together. The gears in Jack's mind appeared to shift, and for the first time, he looked unsure. What if exposing the truth threatens everything I've built? What if it costs me everything again? The question loomed heavy, breathing life into an underlying tension between them. It was a double-edged sword. Emily felt the weight of his vulnerability but also the undeniable urgency to push forward. The juxtaposition was dizzying. I guess the answer lies in what we choose to prioritize, she replied, determination sharpening her resolve. Do we choose to protect a tarnished reputation, or do we fight for something greater than ourselves? Jack fell silent, and in his contemplation, Emily felt her own resolve deepen. She realized it was not only her father's legacy that hung in the balance, but also her emerging identity. Here was the moment where she would either embrace her strength or retreat back to the shadows. The way forward intensified sharply, each revelation sparking newfound energy within her. As the sun began to set, casting an orange glow across the skyline, Emily felt ready. Whatever consequences awaited them, she was prepared to confront them head-on. But then, just as they were poised to finalize their next move, Jack's phone buzzed an unexpected call. She watched him furrow his brow in concern, the air thickening with unspoken dread. Who would reach out at such a critical moment, and what could it mean for their plans? Emily felt the familiar churn of uncertainty coil in her stomach. The stakes were rising, and each decision they made would lead them down a path they couldn't yet foresee. What if this was the beginning of their undoing? Or perhaps, their ultimate catalyst? As Jack answered the call, she braced herself for what was coming, knowing that the next chapter of their story was about to be written in bold, unforeseen strokes. Jack's expression shifted dramatically as he listened, eyes flaring with a mixture of disbelief and concern. Emily couldn't suppress the surge of anxiety that gripped her. What could possibly be unfolding on the other end of that call? The gravity of his expression communicated a narrative far darker than simple business inquiries. "All right," he replied, voice laced with tension. "I'll be there." He ended the call abruptly and turned his attention to Emily, a storm brewing behind his eyes. "I have to go. A board member has been involved in some severe misconduct. It seems that ties to my father aren't as faint as I thought." Emily's heart raced. The urgency in his voice pierced through her composure. "Jack, do you need me with you?" He hesitated, clearly weighing the risks, the consequences, and her earlier insistence to forge ahead together. "No. Not today. But I need you to stay on course with the research. There's a connection here I can't ignore. If this leads to what I think it might," he trailed off, eyes narrowing, "if this reveals layers of deceit, it could either destroy me or offer a chance to navigate through it all." With that, he was gone, leaving her alone in the office, the weight of their ambition cramped against the enormity of unprocessed truths. Suddenly, the sprawling city views felt like gilded bars of a cage rather than an inviting horizon. The existential question slashed through her mind: could she unearth deeper, more dangerous truths while he was occupied with his own demons? Emily took a deep breath, stifling the panic rising in her throat. This was her moment, after all the thrusting edge of a vast undertaking that echoed the voice of her father's suffering, the call to confront both Jack's past and her own. She dove back into her research with renewed vigor. The dim glow of her laptop screen illuminated old financial statements like bones laid bare, a massacre steeped in wealth and greed. Every word she read fueled her growing resolve. She was pieces of a larger puzzle, fitting together history with the present like a piecemeal bomb threatening to go off with one wrong move. Emily meticulously documented her findings, her fingers flying over the keys with a desperate authority. Hidden deals, back-channel communications connections she had not initially recognized unfolded like petals around a dangerous flower. The revelation that many of Jack's decisions originated from intimidation rather than business acumen sank into her gut. Suddenly, another thought struck her. What if Jack's desire for redemption was a mask for something darker? As she considered this, an unease slithered up her spine. Would she, too, be merely the means to an end in someone else's quest for change? The gnawing question of her integrity weighed heavily. What if revealing Jack's facade meant undermining her own emerging identity? This was not just professional, it was visceral and personal. She was no longer merely revealing the truth about their fathers, she was blitzing through the remnants of her own self-doubt. Hours slipped away like sand in an hourglass, and as the twilight spread its shroud over the city, Emily finally leaned back, the realization crashing around her. She had the power to wield this information as she saw fit. Yet she recognized that knowledge could be both a weapon and a shield. The tension twisted in her gut. Would exposing Jack's misdeeds dissolve their connection, leaving her isolated at the precipice of discovery? As her internal conflict brewed, the weight of her choices began to manifest. She had embarked on this journey not just to confront the past, but to reclaim her narrative. It demanded clarity on where her voice ended and Jack's actions began. Just as determination began to settle in, her phone chimed with a new message, a text from Jack. "I found something. It's bigger than we thought." Her pulse quickened again, anxiety spurted anew. The door to new revelations had swung wide open, and with it came the potential for everything to unravel in ways she couldn't yet fathom. Emily's mind raced. What if Jack had disregarded her warnings, plunging deeper into dangerous waters? This was no longer just about her father or Jack's redemption, it was the fine line between truth and consequence. She needed to prepare for the fallout, whatever that might entail. The battle lines were drawn. Would she stand resolute in her mission, or would she let the fear of consequences chain her again? As she stood at the crossroads of her ambitions and buried fears, Emily realized the time had come to face the shades of uncertainty head-on. She felt the thrill of anticipation and dread entwined, each remarkable in its own right, urging her to plunge forth. And as the city lights flickered to life, a new kind of fear whispered in her ear who would emerge unscathed from this twisted saga? Emily stared at her phone, the screen glowing with Jack's cryptic message. "I found something. It's bigger than we thought." The implications hit her like a drumbeat in her chest, a reminder of the tangled lines between them that began as a shared mission but now loomed with individual stakes. She had to choose her next step wisely. Every move could spiral out of control. Pushing back her chair, she stood up and looked out through the floor-to-ceiling windows at the sprawling city below. The twinkling lights felt like stars trapped in water, beautiful yet fragile. Would the shimmer of illumination drown in tumultuous waves of revelation? Determination surged within her. If Jack was unearthing truths that could shatter their world, she would refocus her energy. It was essential to stay proactive. Inaction could lead uncertainty to breed misinformation and mistrust. The shadows of Jack's family and her father seemed to loom over her like specters demanding to be confronted. With renewed resolve, she settled back at her desk and opened the cluttered folders she had gathered over the weeks. Each document, every statement was a thread she could weave into a narrative. What began as an obligation to her father evolved into a quest for truth, and truth carried its own weight. As she stayed glued to her computer, the sensation of time bending emerged, hours floating like feathers until the early dawn broke at the horizon. But it was not merely the caffeine fueling her research. An inexorable pull was leading her deeper into the dark underbelly of the corporate world. Emily began to see patterns, financial transactions circling like birds of prey, waiting to swoop down on unsuspecting prey. The more she unearthed, the more threads intertwined, accounts of missing funds linked to Jack's father, names that bounced between board meeting minutes like a drumroll before a grand revelation. Her gut clenched as she perceived the perfect storm gathering. Would she be able to confront Jack with the evidence? The notion of exposing the truths she was gathering twisted in her mind, a harbinger of rifts to come. The ambition that had been ignited within her faced a counterpoint: fear of the fallout. Could she bear the burden of dismantling Jack's facade? She hesitated, wondering if revealing these truths could prevent further devastation or merely prolong it. Was she ready to become a harbinger of their undoing? Empowered by a burst of clarity, she began to organize her notes alongside meticulous annotations, preparing for the uneasiness of their next conversation. What good was truth if it tore them apart? As sunlight filtered into the office, softening the sharp edges of darkness, a soft ping interrupted her focus. Another text from Jack. "Meet me at the cafe. Bring everything you've found." Her heart raced. A preamble to confrontation hung heavy in the air. Could this meeting transform the revelation into collaboration or fracture everything they had built? A mounting dread festered alongside the thrill of possibility. In that moment, she recognized that she had created her own path through this labyrinth. She would not be the naive daughter of a wronged man but an empowered individual navigating the duality of truth and consequence. Gathering her documents, she felt a steady resolve wash over her. She had the narrative in her hands, and tomorrow may lead her to choices she never imagined. What would she ultimately risk for the sake of transparency? As she stepped out of the office, determination coursed through her veins. She was prepared to face whatever Jack had unearthed because the stakes were no longer just about survival, it was about ownership of her story. And at that threshold between confusion and clarity, she knew the next chapter was about to unfold, a story where she could no longer remain a passive observer. Would bravery forge a new alliance or dash their aspirations into the recesses of despair? The answers awaited on the other side of the cafe door, and with it, the potential to turn the tide. Emily walked briskly down the street, the sunlight filtering through the leaves overhead like dappled memories, each step a reminder of the weight she carried. The cafe loomed in the distance, its familiar facade holding the promise of answers and peril. What had begun as a quest for understanding now felt like an unraveling tapestry, frayed at the edges with emotions she had tried to keep at bay. As she pushed open the cafe door, the comforting aroma of fresh coffee mingled with muffled conversation, wrapping around her like a warm embrace. Yet, the underlying tension tightened her chest. Jack was already seated at a small corner table, his expression a blend of anticipation and uncertainty. Their eyes locked, and for a brief moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them, a shared history filled with passionate pursuits and buried fears. "Hey," she greeted, settling into the chair opposite him, her notes clutched tightly in her hands as if they might provide a shield against the impending conversation. "Thanks for coming," Jack replied, his voice steadier than she felt. "I didn't know how to approach everything I've found." An edge of vulnerability crept into his tone, betraying the bravado he often wore like armor. She nodded, feeling her heart thump audibly. "I've been digging too. There's a lot to share." The words tasted bitter on her tongue. She wasn't just revealing information but potentially shattering a relationship. "Then let us just get to it," he urged, leaning closer, eyes intent. "What have you discovered?" With a deep breath, she placed her findings on the table between them, the array of documents hanging like the scales of justice poised for judgment. "These transactions don't just lead to missing funds, they point back to your family. It's a web, Jack, and I think your father is at the center." Jack's face paled, the bravado replaced with a mixture of disbelief and dread. "That can't be right, my father, Jack, please." I was shocked too, and she hesitated, feeling the rush of conflicting emotions. "I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence is right here." He sifted through the papers, brow furrowing deeper as the reality began to settle in. "These numbers, this means he's involved in something huge." "But why? What's the endgame?" Faced with his piercing gaze, Emily felt her resolve waver. "That's what we need to figure out together. We can't draw conclusions until we understand the why behind it all." The words spilled out, her professional instincts urging clarity amidst the emotional chaos. Jack leaned back, eyes narrowing as he processed the information, a flicker of urgency igniting within. "But if this is true, does that mean our investigation has always just been a cover? For what? This isn't just about us anymore, it's about everything." His sudden outburst struck her, reverberating like an alarm. The stakes had escalated beyond family loyalty, it had spiraled into a potential corporate scandal that could shake their world to its core. "Jack, we can't let fear dictate what we uncover. Knowledge is our best weapon," she asserted, feeling a surge of newfound strength. "But we must tread carefully. If we expose this, it could endanger us." His gaze softened, an understanding flashing between them. These were uncharted waters, and they would need each other to navigate it. Yet the shadows cast by their families were deep and foreboding, an oppressive reminder of the ties they had to sever to seek the truth. "All right," Jack said finally, resolve hardening his features. "Then we move forward together. We can't sit by while they exploit people." A nervous anticipation electrified the air, each second stretching taut with possibility. Yet, in the depths of her heart, an unsettling doubt lingered. Were they storming a fortress built on lies, or were they unwittingly stepping into a trap set deep by those they sought to unmask? She gathered her resolve. "We'll devise a plan. First, we need to confirm everything before making any bold moves." As they leaned over the documents, formulating strategies, the atmosphere shifted, blending urgency with fear. They were on the precipice of something monumental, and the downward spiral into the unknown loomed ominously ahead. Outside, the world continued, oblivious to the unfolding drama inside. Would they disrupt a powerful machine, altering the course of their own lives in the process? Or would they become collateral damage in a game much larger than either of them? The cafe door swung open again, a familiar face stepping in, one that could easily tip the balance of their precarious alliance. Emily's stomach dropped. The moment of truth was arriving, and it was far from what she had anticipated. The sudden jingle of the cafe bell reverberated in Emily's ears, a clear signal that the air within had shifted once more. Her gaze snapped to the newly arrived figure, heart racing as recognition filtered through her thoughts. It was Mia, her childhood friend, and waitress at the cafe. But the warmth of nostalgia quickly morphed into anxiety. Emily could sense that Mia's presence might complicate their already delicate situation. Mia dashed over to their table, a bright smile plastered on her face, unaware of the brewing storm beneath the surface. "Hey, you two! What are you up to?" The casual tone contrasted starkly with the tension in Emily's chest. She felt Jack's eyes flicker toward her, then back to Mia, understanding dawning. "Just catching up," Emily responded, forcing a smile, though her stomach twisted at the thought of what was unfolding behind the scenes. The stakes were high, and she couldn't afford any distractions. Jack shifted uncomfortably, silently signaling Emily to remain focused. "I overheard some interesting gossip while serving tables," Mia continued, leaning in conspiratorially. "You know the Lawson family, right? They're involved in some kind of scandal. People are saying it might involve money laundering or something like that." The mention of Lawson sent a jolt through Emily. Jack's father was tied to that name, and this was the kind of chatter they had been trying to navigate without drawing undue attention. Emily feigned casual interest even as adrenaline coursed through her veins. "Really? That sounds crazy. Do you have any idea what's behind it?" Mia shrugged, oblivious to the loaded tension, and continued. "Just whispers, you know. But I overheard a couple of important people at the bar the other night talking about how they might be connected to your dad, Emily." Ice washed over Emily's skin. Her father's name had caused friction in her relationship with Jack before, and she could feel the undercurrents pulsing with renewed vigor. The last thing they needed was more entanglement, especially with layers of family secrets loomed just beneath. "We should keep our heads down," Jack chimed in, his tone firm but his eyes a swirl of anxiety and determination. "We can't risk bringing in someone else right now." Mia, unfazed, laughed lightly. "I didn't mean to stir the pot. Just thought you'd want to know." With a quick glance, she retreated, leaving Emily and Jack teetering on the edge of chaos. As she sat back down, Emily's heart raced, grappling with the new complexity in their situation. The stakes felt higher than ever. Whispers could turn into shouts that could potentially expose them before they had even confirmed their findings. The information they needed seemed to slip further away, shrouded in a haze of rumors and familial connections. Jack's face reflected a battle of strategy and worry. "We can't let her know too much. We have to work quietly and methodically. We need a safe space to gather our thoughts and findings without drawing attention," he said, resolve rekindling behind his anxiety. "Agreed," Emily replied, feeling the pressure mount. She thought back to moments in her past when she had shied away from confrontation, and truth now was not one of those moments. They were on the cusp of a personal and professional breakthrough. She would have to step into her full intelligence, her instincts sharpened by years of learning and observing. Suddenly, the cafe felt stifling, each face in the room magnifying the risks they faced. What were they really willing to risk for the truth? What would they discover about themselves in this journey ahead? "Let's south head to my place. We can dig deeper there," Emily suggested, a spark of determination igniting within her. "We need to strategize without the noise around us." Jack nodded, his expression suddenly focused. She could see the gears turning in his mind, shifting from shock to action. As they gathered their materials, an uncomfortable thought settled in her mind. Was this a path toward clarity or a descent into darkness? With Mia's intel, they had taken a crucial step into uncharted territory, a world of intrigue that teetered on the brink of danger. With their plan set, they stepped out into the fading light, the day slipping away into a threatening dusk. Each step took them closer to potential revelations, yet cast shadows of doubt larger than before. What new truths would they unearth when they entered the depths of their own histories? Before long, their lives would intertwine with a narrative far more complex than they had sensed. As Emily pulled her jacket tighter against the evening chill, a familiar unease curled in her stomach, an instinct both thrilling and terrifying. They were about to confront more than just corruption. they were on the edge of confronting their pasts and perhaps, unearthing hidden truths about themselves. Fueled by urgency and fear, their shared journey was about to take a pivotal turn. Unbeknownst to them, the tangled threads they were following would soon lead to an unexpected confrontation that neither was prepared for. As they settled into the cramped yet cozy space of Emily's apartment, the walls seemed to close in around them. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension, and Emily could feel her heart hammering in her chest. This was not just an investigation about the Lawsons anymore, it had transformed into a personal quest and unavoidable reckoning with the past. Emily glanced at Jack, who was already poring over his notes, brow furrowed in concentration. She admired his determination but felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her. The burden they carried extended beyond the secrets of the Lawsons. It seeped into their relationship, the trust that had once been a foundation now threatened by looming truths yet to be revealed. "Do you think we're making the right move?" she finally asked, breaking the silence. The question had been gnawing at her since they left the cafe, and she needed reassurance and anchor in the storm of uncertainty. Jack looked up, his expression serious. "We have to. If we don't act now, the chance could slip away." His eyes briefly flicked to a window, where the day's last light dwindled, casting elongated shadows across the floor. "Once we gather the missing pieces, we can make better decisions. But I need to know your head is in this too." She nodded, her resolve hardening. This wasn't just about gathering information, it was about confronting fears that loomed larger than any external threat. A memory danced in her mind the last time she had felt this way, being a mere bystander in the chaos. A part of her feared she might repeat that pattern of retreating into silence. This time, though, she would not disappear into the sidelines. "Let us start with what Mia said," Emily urged, trying to focus on the task at hand. "If the Lawsons are connected to my dad, we need to know exactly what that means. We can't afford any assumptions." Jack pushed his papers aside and nodded again, a spark of collaboration igniting between them. "How do you want to break this down? Should we start with any recent transactions tied to the Lawsons? If they're laundering money, there will be a trail." She felt a surge of excitement at the challenge ahead. "Exactly. I've been tracking his investments. There are small ventures that seem innocuous, but I want to dig deeper. If any of them connect with the Lawsons, the implications made her pulse race. Would this investigation lead her to a father she barely understood? The thought carried a weight of dread and possibility. She had to confront the man who had shaped her life, causing fissures in her present. Hours melted away as they worked, the intensity of their focus drawing them closer. Each piece of information unearthed connected threads of deceit that wove through their lives. With every finding, she felt layers of her past peeling back, revealing both fear and resilience. She was discovering that she had the power to face the tangled web of her family legacy rather than cower beneath it. As midnight approached, Emily leaned back in her chair, utterly spent yet invigorated. They had uncovered enough evidence to confirm that the Lawsons were indeed engaging in dubious financial activities, all seemingly linked to her father. The complex web had ensnared both their family histories and futures. She felt a surge of empowerment, a feeling she hadn't experienced in ages, the heady rush of taking control of her narrative. "Emily," Jack's voice broke through her contemplations, heavy with something akin to trepidation. "There's something we need to discuss." The sudden shift in his tone gripped her. She could sense the pivotal moment before her. "What is it?" He hesitated, casting his gaze toward the floor as if gathering his thoughts. "I don't want to complicate things, but I have a connection with your father, more than I initially revealed. It could change everything for us." The room seemed to tilt, and her heart stammered in response. What Jack was about to reveal might not just affect their investigation but the very foundation of their relationship. "I need to know how deep this connection goes," she said, voice steady despite the tremor in her heart. His eyes locked onto hers, the tension between them palpable. "The time has come to face it, Emily. As he prepared to speak, part of her sensed a greater storm brewing on the horizon, one that would not only challenge their understanding of betrayal but redefine the very nature of trust between them as well. Jack exhaled slowly, a deep breath to bridge the chasm of uncertainty brewing in the now still air of Emily's apartment. "My father and yours were business partners," he finally confessed, his voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid the walls themselves might overhear. "They were entangled in dealings that spiraled into difficulties. I thought it was buried, forgotten, until now." The word slammed into her like an unexpected tidal wave, leaving her gasping. The very foundation of her burgeoning confidence wobbled, as she grappled with the implications of this revelation. "That changes everything," she managed to say, her voice steadying as clarity reigned within the storm of emotion. "Are your father's decisions the reason my family is struggling?" "It's part of a bigger story," Jack replied, his tone heavy with regret. "I thought stepping into this business world would allow me the power to make things right. But every choice I made ripped open old scars instead of healing them. I unwittingly became a puppet in a game I didn't fully understand." Tension hung thick as Emily processed his admission. The complexities of their pasts twisted into her own narrative, beckoning her to confront not just Jack's familial affiliations but the very legacy of her father, a legacy now intertwined with betrayal and loss. But guilt for Jack's past decisions competed fiercely for her attention. "What does this mean for us?" she asked, her voice a quiet tremor, reflecting the gravity of the moment. Jack leaned forward, his eyes burning with an imploring intensity. "It means we have to be cautious. Our investigation isn't just about exposing corruption, it's about untangling the emotional web that ties our families together. I won't let my father's mistakes define your future, Emily. You have to understand," she began, the resolve in her heart hardening, "this isn't just some narrative of familial duty anymore. If my father is involved, I have a larger obligation not just to the truth but to what happens to every person his ambitions affected. I can't allow us to disappear into regret. I must carve my path away from their shadows." Just then, the enormity of it all crystallized. Emily felt her past full of broken dreams and family loyalties falling away, replaced instead by a fierce determination. Jack's honesty, vulnerable yet laced with clarity, reinvigorated her mission. They were treading into risky waters, but it was their combined strength that could forge the way forward. As they pored over their findings once more, digging deeper into connections, Emily felt an unwavering sense of empowerment blooming within her. She had risen from the ashes of doubt and familial guilt, ready to confront both her father's legacy and Jack's expectations. Uncovering hard truths would illuminate paths long obscured by familial shadows, and fatigue became a tide lifting her spirit rather than submerging it. Hours passed in harmony with determination. Yet as dawn's light crept into the room, illuminating rough sketches and notes scattered like stars across the universe of their ambition, Emily felt a surge of clarity. The truth we're searching for, it's not just facts or numbers. It's about creating a narrative that transforms our lives and dedicates meaning to the past while creating new futures. "I believe that," Jack murmured, awe shadowing his features as he regarded the fire ignited in her. "Everything you've uncovered is powerful, and it changes the narrative not just for us but for everyone who has been impacted." The purpose of their collective mission had evolved into a lens through which they could understand the consequences of ambition and betrayal, a stark reminder that true power lay in transparency. It was no longer just a personal journey, it had transformed into an ethical duty to rewrite damaged histories. As they prepared to take their findings to the public, Emily felt an exhilarating mix of fear and excitement. We have to expose the truth. It's time to bring these connections into the light and reclaim our stories. Every pound of her heart echoed in her conviction. They would stand as allies, illuminating the truth woven into their intertwined fates amidst their father's shadows. Jack nodded, determination solidifying his resolve. "Together, we can confront the powers that be. I won't let family legacy dictate our choices moving forward." With newfound empowerment threading through them, Emily faced the uncertainty ahead with a firm heart. The truth, stripped down to its core, would shine brighter than any obstacle. What started as a connection between their pasts had blossomed into an unbreakable bond, a collective commitment to transparency and accountability that could reshape their futures. Standing with Jack at the precipice of a new chapter, Emily felt solid confidence for the first time, anchored in her purpose, recognized for her determination, and prepared to conquer the tide of familial legacy. Their expedition into exposing the truth was about to ensue, a transformative journey filled with revitalized dreams and respectful recognition, one that would reclaim not only their identities but also redefine the very fabric of their family's intertwined fables. As dawn broke, casting light onto their newfound path, Emily took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever came next. From victim to agent of truth, she would navigate the complexity of her legacy and emerge on the other side, forever changed. Now, this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss out on the next exclusive story of transformation and courage. Leave a like right now to fuel the algorithm and help more people discover these inspirational narratives. Comment below your reactions and theories about Emily's incredible journey. Don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this conclusion. Let us spark this movement together.